The night Oklahoma City started questioning Chet Holmgren. Chet Holmgren walked into Game 7 as one of the future faces of the Oklahoma City Thunder. He walked out as the name everybody suddenly wanted on the trade machine. That is how fast the NBA can turn on you. One night, you are a franchise cornerstone, a 7'1" unicorn, a defensive anchor, a championship piece, the player Oklahoma City believed could grow beside Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for the next decade. Then, one elimination game happens, one brutal performance under the brightest lights, and suddenly the conversation changes from how good can Chet become to should the Thunder move him before it is too late. And the craziest part is this: Stephen A. Smith did not whisper it. He did not soften it. He went on national television, looked straight into the camera, and made it plain. If Oklahoma City has a chance to get someone like Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chet Holmgren should be on the table. Not because Chet has no talent, not because he is a bust, but because in the biggest moment of the Thunder season, when his team needed him to stand tall, he almost disappeared completely. Game 7 against San Antonio was supposed to be a defining moment. Oklahoma City was at home. The crowd was ready. The season was on the line. Shai needed a real second force. The Thunder needed Chet to be aggressive, fearless, present. Instead, he played 33 minutes and took only 2 shots. 2 shots, 4 points, and both of those attempts came early in the first quarter. After that, for more than 30 minutes of a winner-take-all playoff game, Chet Holmgren barely looked at the basket. That is not just a bad shooting night. That is the kind of performance that forces a franchise to ask uncomfortable questions. Because when Victor Wembanyama is on the other side, hunting you, challenging you, turning the matchup into something personal, you cannot respond by fading into the background. Wemby did not treat this like just another series. He attacked. He pushed the emotional temperature higher. He made it feel like a rivalry. And Chet, at least publicly, kept saying it was only Thunder versus Spurs. That answer sounded mature. It sounded professional. But on the court, professionalism without force can look a lot like hesitation. That is why the media reaction hit so hard. Stephen A. called him out. Kendrick Perkins went even further. Joe Johnson questioned his accountability. And perhaps the most painful part for Chet was that many Thunder fans were not rushing to defend him. They had watched the same thing. They had seen the same passivity. They had felt the same frustration. Now Oklahoma City is standing at a crossroads. Do they keep believing in the young star they developed? Or do they admit that championship windows do not stay open forever and use Chet as the centerpiece in a blockbuster move for Giannis? Because Shai is ready right now. The roster is ready right now. The draft picks are there right now. And when a team is this close to a title, patience can either become wisdom or become the thing that costs you everything. So before we go deeper, I want to know where you are watching from. Drop your city or state in the comments. If you believe Oklahoma City should keep Chet and trust his growth, press 1. If you believe the Thunder should trade him for Giannis, press 2. And if you want every major NBA drama, trade rumor, and locker room story broken down right here, make sure you subscribe, because this Thunder decision could change the entire league. The 2 shots that changed everything. Game 7 was not supposed to become a trial for Chet Holmgren. It was supposed to become the night he answered the doubts. Oklahoma City had everything set up for a statement. The building was alive. The crowd believed. The Thunder had spent years building toward this exact kind of moment. Not just to be young and exciting, not just to be the team of the future, but to prove that the future had already arrived. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was ready to carry the offense. The role players were ready to fight. The defense was ready to make San Antonio work for every inch. But in a game like that, against a player like Victor Wembanyama, your second star cannot be invisible. That was the problem. Chet was not just quiet. He was absent. 2 shot attempts in 33 minutes is the number people will remember because it sounds almost impossible. A player with his size, his skill, his touch, his contract, his reputation, and his responsibility cannot take 2 shots in a Game 7 and expect the basketball world to move on like nothing happened. But the number becomes even more painful when you realize both attempts came in the opening minutes. That means once the game settled, once the pressure climbed, once Wembanyama started putting his fingerprints on every possession, Chet stopped looking for his own offense. That is what made the performance feel bigger than a box score. A bad shooting night happens. A player can go 2 for 1-2 and still earn respect if he keeps attacking. He can miss jumpers, get blocked at the rim, lose a few battles, and still show the crowd that he is willing to fight. But when a player stops putting pressure on the defense entirely, the conversation changes. It is no longer about rhythm. It is about presence. It is about nerve. It is about whether the moment found him before he found the moment. And for Oklahoma City, That was terrifying because Chet was supposed to be the answer next to Shai. He was supposed to be the player who could stretch the floor, protect the rim, punish mismatches, and force San Antonio to respect more than one superstar. Instead, the Spurs were able to load up emotionally and physically, knowing the Thunder's most important frontcourt weapon was not forcing the issue. The image that will stay with people is Wembanyama going right at him early, finishing with force, and changing the energy of the matchup. From that point on, it felt like Victor was playing downhill while Chet was playing carefully. And carefully is a dangerous word in a Game 7. Carefully can become passive, passive can become invisible, invisible can become replaceable. That is why this game shook the franchise so deeply. It was not simply that the Thunder lost. Great teams lose. Young stars struggle. Playoff pain is part of growth. But this was different because the loss exposed a question. Oklahoma City did not want to ask out loud, can Chet Holmgren be trusted when the season is hanging by one possession, one run, one response? After the game, Chet admitted there were chances to be more aggressive. That honesty mattered. It showed he understood the issue, but it also made everything more uncomfortable because if the opportunities were there and he saw them, then the problem was not the system. It was not just San Antonio's defense. It was not simply Wembanyama's length. The chances existed. He just did not take them. For a fan base that has lived through rebuilds, trades, heartbreak, and years of waiting, that kind of admission is hard to hear. Oklahoma City did not need perfect. They needed fight. They needed Chet to miss loudly, not disappear quietly. They needed him to make Wembanyama feel him, even if the shots did not fall. Instead, the loudest thing about his night was the silence. And that silence gave Stephen A. Smith, Kendrick Perkins, Joe Johnson, and every frustrated Thunder fan the opening they needed. Because once a player disappears in the exact moment he was built up to own, the debate is no longer just about one game. It becomes about the future. When one bad night starts looking like a pattern, the hardest part about defending Chet Holmgren after Game 7 is that this did not feel like a random bad night. If it had been only one ugly performance, Thunder fans could have moved on. Every young star has playoff scars. Every great player has a night where the shots do not fall. But this was different, because Chet's problem was not just missing shot. He barely took any. And when you look back, that is why the criticism became so loud. Chet has never been questioned because of talent. He is too skilled, too long, too smart defensively, and too valuable to call ordinary. On paper, he is everything a modern NBA team wants. A rim protector, a floor spacer, a mobile big man who can change the game on both ends. But playoff basketball does not care about potential. It cares about pressure. And under pressure, the same concern keeps coming back. When the stage gets bigger, Chet's offensive force seems to get smaller. In college, there were moments when his jumper disappeared under the brightest lights. In earlier playoff runs, his shooting touch faded. In the finals, his defense still mattered, but his offense became easier to ignore. And now, against Wembanyama and the Spurs, the issue exploded. 4 points in Game 7, 2 shot attempts, 0 second-half field goal attempts. Those numbers became evidence in a much larger case. The defense for Chet is fair. He is still young. He has already achieved a lot. Many great players needed painful losses before becoming who they were supposed to be. Sometimes failure becomes the fire. Sometimes humiliation becomes the summer that changes everything. But Oklahoma City is no longer a rebuilding team. They have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander ready to win now. They have depth, defense, assets, and a real championship window. They cannot wait forever for potential to become production. That is why this moment hurt so badly. It happened at home, in an elimination game, against the one young superstar most connected to Chet's name. Wembanyama looked like he wanted the pressure. Chet looked like he was trying not to be swallowed by it. And in the NBA, perception changes fast. Once people believe a player does not want the smoke, every quiet possession becomes proof. Every pass out of a mismatch becomes proof. Every moment he refuses to attack becomes another clip in the argument. So now the question is simple. Can Chet turn this pain into aggression? Can he come back tougher, louder, and more willing to impose himself when the game gets uncomfortable? Because the best version of Chet Holmgren is special. But if that version only appears when the pressure is low, Oklahoma City may eventually have to ask whether talent is enough. Maybe Game 7 becomes the night that changes him forever, but if the same pattern shows up again next spring, the Thunder may not be able to defend it anymore. The rivalry. Chet tried to ignore. The reason this story became bigger than one playoff loss is because the man across from Chet Holmgren was not just another opponent, it was Victor Wembanyama. Chet and Wemby have been linked for years. Their history started before the NBA, back when Chet beat Wembanyama in the FIBA U19 World Cup, and walked away as tournament MVP. At that time, it looked like Chet had won the first chapter of their rival, but Wemby never seemed to forget it. In this series, Victor did not play like it was just Spurs versus Thunder. He played like it was personal. He attacked Chet physically, challenged him mentally, bumped him, stared him down, and turned every possession into a message. Chet, meanwhile, tried to stay calm. Every time reporters asked about the rivalry, he pushed it back to the team. He said it was about Thunder versus Spurs, not him versus Wemby. That sounded mature, but on the court, it also made him look passive, because Wembanyama was not avoiding the matchup, he was hunting it. Early in Game 7, Wemby went right at Chet and finished with force. It was not just 2 points, it changed the energy. From that moment on, Victor looked aggressive, confident, and in control. Chet never truly responded. That is why the criticism hit so hard. It was not because Chet got dunked on. That happens to every player. The real issue was what came after. Wemby kept attacking, Chet faded, and in the NBA, that matters. The league remembers who fights back and who disappears. This was Chet's chance to prove he belonged in the same conversation as Wembanyama. Instead, the series made the gap between them feel wider. That does not mean the rivalry is over. Chet can still answer. He can still use this loss as fuel, but he cannot do it with polite quotes or team-first answers. He has to answer on them. Until then, this rivalry does not feel like two stars colliding. It feels like one player hunting and the other trying not to be caught. When the media turned the pressure into a storm, after Game 7, the criticism did not come slowly. It hit Chet Holmgren all at once. Stephen A. Smith was the first voice that made the situation explode. He did not simply say Chet needed to improve. He said the Thunder should consider moving him if a player like Giannis Antetokounmpo became available. That turned a bad playoff game into a national trade debate. Then Kendrick Perkins made it even harsher. As a former Thunder player, his words carried extra weight. He looked at Chet's performance and said the problem was not just the numbers, it was the way he played. The lack of aggression, the lack of response. The feeling that Wembanyama had taken the fight out of him. That kind of criticism cuts deeper than a stat line. Joe Johnson came from another angle. He questioned why Chet was not even looking at the rim. To him, getting blocked or challenged by Wemby should not have made Chet stop attacking. It should have made him attack harder. In playoff basketball, you cannot let one player scare you away from your own game. 3 different voices, 3 different platforms, 1 message. Chet did not answer the moment. And what made it worse was the reaction from Oklahoma City fans. Usually, when national media attacks a young franchise player, the fan base pushes back. They protect their guy. They blame the analysts. They say outsiders do not understand the team. But this time, many Thunder fans were quiet. Some even agreed. That silence was dangerous. It showed this was not just media drama. The frustration was real. Fans had watched the same game. They had seen Chet pass up chances. They had seen him fade while Wembanyama grew stronger. They had seen Shy need help that never came. That is when a bad performance becomes something bigger. It becomes a trust issue because fans can forgive missed shots. They can forgive nerves. They can forgive youth. What they struggle to forgive is hesitation when everything is on the line. Now, Chet is not only fighting Wembanyama, he is fighting a new label. Passive, unreliable, not ready. Maybe not the second star OKC thought he was. Those words can follow a player if he does not crush them quickly. The only way Chet can change the story is not through interviews. It is not through calm answers. It is not through teammates defending him. He has to change it with force, with shots, with contact. With games where he makes the basketball world remember why Oklahoma City believed in him in the first place. Because once the media turns doubt into a storm, silence will not save you. Only performance can. Chet's calm answer made the questions louder. When the criticism exploded, Chet Holmgren had every reason to fire back. He could have blamed the media. He could have pointed to his regular season, his defense, or his value to Oklahoma City. He could have said people were overreacting to one game. But Chet stayed calm. When reporters asked about Wembanyama, he refused to make it personal. He kept saying it was about Thunder versus Spurs, about the team trying to win, not about one individual battle. That sounded mature. It sounded professional. But after a Game 7 where he took only 2 shots, that calm answer did not satisfy people. Fans did not want a polished response. They wanted fire. They wanted to know that the loss hurt. They wanted to feel that being challenged by Wemby and questioned by the entire basketball world had awakened something in him. Instead, Chet sounded controlled. That does not mean he did not care. Quiet players can care deeply, but in the NBA, perception matters. And after disappearing in the biggest moment of the season, silence can look like comfort. Calm can look like acceptance. The most important thing Chet admitted was that there were chances to be more aggressive, and he did not take them. That made the situation even harder to ignore. The opportunities were there. He saw them. He just did not seize them. Now, his response cannot come through interviews. It has to come through action. Next time Wembanyama attacks him, Chet has to attack back. Next time the game gets tight, he has to demand the ball. Next time Oklahoma City needs a second star, he cannot wait for the moment to find him. He has to take it. The Giannis trade that suddenly sounds possible. The moment Stephen A. Smith brought up Giannis Antetokounmpo, the entire conversation changed. Before that, people were mostly asking whether Chet Holmgren had failed in Game 7. After that, they were asking whether Oklahoma City should move him before his value becomes more complicated. At first, the idea sounds extreme. Trading a young 7'1" star after one playoff collapse feels emotional. It feels reactionary. It feels like the kind of move fans scream about online before front offices calm everyone down. But with Oklahoma City, it is not that simple. The Thunder are not a normal team. They have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander ready to win right now. They have a deep roster. They have young talent. They have more draft capital than almost anyone in the league. Most teams dream of having enough assets to chase a superstar. Oklahoma City actually has them. That is why the Giannis idea is dangerous, because it is not impossible. Put Giannis next to Shai, and suddenly the Thunder become terrifying. Shai already controls the floor like a surgeon. He can get to his spots, slow the game down, attack in isolation, and punish defenses from every angle. Add Giannis, and now Oklahoma City has a force who can run, attack the rim, draw defenders, protect the paint, and to bring a level of physical dominance that Chet has not consistently shown in the biggest moments. That is the temptation. Giannis does not need to be imagined as a future star. He already knows what it feels like to carry championship pressure. He has been the best player on a title team. He has faced playoff wars. He has taken hits, criticism, failure, and still reached the top. For a Thunder team trying to win now, that matters, because the question is no longer whether Chet might become great someday. The question is whether Oklahoma City can afford to wait for someday while Shai is already ready today. A trade package built around Chet, another young rotation piece, and draft picks would be painful. It would be expensive. It would mean admitting that talent alone is not enough if the mindset does not match the moment. But it would also give OKC a proven superstar next to Shai, and that kind of chance does not appear often. Still, this is not an easy call. Chet is young. His ceiling is still high. His best version fits almost perfectly with modern basketball. Trading him too soon could become the kind of mistake a franchise regrets for years. If he uses this failure as fuel and becomes tougher, more aggressive, and more reliable, Oklahoma City could look impatient for even considering it. But championship teams live in reality, not hope. Right now, the reality is that Chet vanished when the Thunder needed him. Giannis, even with his own questions, represents force, experience, and proven playoff power. That is why the debate is so serious. It is not about giving up on Chet because of one bad night. It is about asking whether one bad night revealed something Oklahoma City cannot ignore. The risk behind the Giannis dream, the Giannis idea sounds powerful, but it is not perfect. That is the part Oklahoma City has to take seriously. A trade like this is not just about adding a superstar. It is about changing the identity of the franchise. It means moving away from the young core the Thunder spent years building. It means admitting that Chet Holmgren may not be the long-term answer next to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That is a massive decision. Chet is still young, he is still talented, his defensive impact is real, his ceiling is still high. If he becomes stronger, more aggressive, and more confident under pressure, he could still become exactly what Oklahoma City hoped he would be. And that is the danger of trading him too early. Because if Chet leaves, grows from this failure, and becomes a star somewhere else, the Thunder would have to live with that forever. Fans would remember the panic. Critics would ask why OKC gave up on a rare talent after one painful playoff moment. A front office can survive a bold move, but it cannot easily escape a bold move that backfires. Then there is Giannis himself. Giannis is great, nobody should question that. But he is not risk-free, he is older than Chet, he is expensive, his physical style takes a toll. And even though he has already proven he can win at the highest level, Oklahoma City would still be betting that his best years fit perfectly with Shai's prime. That might be true, but it is still a gamble. The Thunder would also have to adjust how they play. With Chet, the floor stays more open. He can stretch defenses, protect the rim, and fit next to almost any lineup. With Giannis, the team becomes more physical, more forceful, more dangerous in transition, but spacing and late-game structure would need careful planning. So this is not simply a question of talent, it is a question of direction. Do the Thunder want to stay patient with the player they built? Or do they want to attack the championship window right now with a proven superstar? Both paths have risk. Keeping Chet means trusting that Game 7 was a lesson, not a warning. Trading for Giannis means accepting that the future becomes heavier, more expensive, and more immediate. That is why Sam Presti's decision is so difficult. If he waits too long, OKC could waste a title window. If he moves too fast, he could trade away a player who is about to grow into the pain. There is no safe choice anymore, only the choice Oklahoma City is willing to live with. 3 roads Oklahoma City cannot avoid. Oklahoma City now has 3 choices, and none of them are easy. The first choice is patience. Keep Chet Holmgren, trust his growth, and believe Game 7 becomes the pain that changes him. This path only works if Chet comes back tougher, louder, and more aggressive. OKC would not just be betting on his talent, they would be betting on his transformation. The second choice is the nuclear option. Call Milwaukee, build the package, and try to bring Giannis next to Shai. That move would tell the league Oklahoma City is done waiting, but it would also change everything. The Thunder would no longer be a young team learning lessons. They would be expected to win now. The third choice is the middle road. Maybe the answer is not Giannis. Maybe Chet becomes part of another trade for a player who fits better, costs less, and brings the playoff toughness OKC needs without completely changing the team's identity. But the one thing Oklahoma City cannot do is pretend nothing happened. Game 7 changed the conversation. The fans saw it, the media saw it, Chet admitted the chances were there, and he did not take them. A championship team cannot ignore that. Shai is ready, the roster is ready, the assets are ready. Now the question is whether Chet is ready. If the Thunder believe he is, they must stand behind him completely. If they do not, they must act before hesitation costs them their title window. The decision that will define the Thunder. In the end, this story is not only about Chet Holmgren taking 2 shots in Game 7, it is about what Oklahoma City does after seeing it. Every great team eventually reaches a moment where potential is no longer enough. Talent matters, but timing matters too. The Thunder have built something rare. They have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander playing like a true franchise superstar. They have depth. They have defense. They have draft picks. They have one of the smartest front offices in basketball. But now they also have a question they cannot avoid. Can Chet become the player they need when the pressure is at its highest? That answer does not have to come from social media. It does not have to come from Stephen A. Smith, Kendrick Perkins, Joe Johnson, or any outside voice. It has to come from Chet himself, not with words, not with calm interviews, not with safe answers about the team. It has to come through his work, his body language, his aggression, and the way he responds the next time someone tries to take the moment from him. Because one bad game should never define a player's entire career. But one bad game can reveal what must change. For Oklahoma City, the lesson is clear. Championship teams cannot be emotional, but they also cannot be blind. They must protect their players, but they must also protect their window. If they believe Chet's pain will turn into growth, then they should stand behind him fully. Give him the summer, give him the challenge, give him the chance to answer Wembanyama and the world. But if they believe this pattern will keep returning when the lights get hottest, then they have to be honest. Not cruel, not reckless, honest. Because Shai's prime is too valuable to waste, and championship chances do not wait forever. For Chet, the path is even simpler. He does not need to become louder in interviews. He does not need to fight every critic online. He needs to become louder on the court. Take the shot. Demand the ball. Attack after getting blocked. Stand his ground when the matchup gets physical. Show his teammates that when the moment gets heavy, he will not disappear. That is the human lesson in all of this. Failure is painful, but it is not final. Criticism can break a player, or it can build a stronger one. The best response to humiliation is not anger. It is growth. It is discipline. It is coming back with peace in your mind and fire in your game. Maybe Chet still becomes everything Oklahoma City dreamed he could be. Maybe this becomes the turning point that makes him tougher, sharper, and more dangerous. Or maybe the Thunder decide the time for waiting is over and make the move that changes the franchise forever. Either way, the next chapter belongs to action. So now I want to hear from you. Should Oklahoma City keep Chet and trust his growth, or should they trade him for a proven superstar like Giannis? Press 1 if you believe Chet deserves another chance. Press 2 if you think the Thunder should make the blockbuster move now. Drop your city or state in the comments, hit like if you enjoyed this breakdown, share it with another NBA fan, and subscribe to the channel, because this offseason could change the future of the entire league.